Okay, guys, we're looking at one of the last times we're going to talk about reading strategies. And just like I said with the last one, this one's kind of important. I'm trying to prepare everybody for the reading writing test that you'll be taking in, like another week or so. So a lot of what we're going to talk about here today should prepare you for some of those questions. I don't know what form that test is going to take anymore. I haven't figured that out. Normally I have everybody take the college AccuPlacer test, which was the placement test that the school uses. I don't know that I'll have access to such a thing, but I'm proceeding along preparing you as if you're going to take that test or a very similar test. And even if the test ends up being different, the techniques and things that we're talking about here are still going to apply to how you go about reading your textbooks and other things that might be on that test and just reading in the future. So today we're going to talk about purpose and tone. And this is important. I'm preparing you because a lot of the questions on the test might ask, what is the author's purpose? Okay. To answer that question, oftentimes you have to analyze the author's tone to try to figure out what that purpose is. Okay, so when we talk about purpose, it directly kind of relates to some of the questioning that you might see on this test. Okay. All right, so the tone is the emotion or mood of the author's written voice. Okay, it is the author's attitude towards the topic. Okay, the purpose is the reason the author writes about a topic. Okay, so you might get the purpose question on a test. Okay, but understanding the tone and the attitude can help you discern that purpose. Okay. Tone, I think, understanding tone nowadays is really important because so much of the communication we do is through, say the written word. We're really texting. Okay. Stop and think a second. Have you ever gotten in a fight with a friend or a misunderstanding because you've received a text from him or her and you weren't sure what the tone was? Okay, you're not really sure how to read it because you're not quite sure how they, what was their mood when they sent it, right? So consider the difference. Hey, if you text your friend, hey, meet me at the mall. Okay, and they write, okay. Okay, and that's different than K, right? Or KK, or K period. Okay, each one of those says the same thing, right? But they may have very different emotions behind them. Okay, what does it mean if your friend just writes K, okay, or K with a period after it? What was the purpose that the author had in writing that? Okay, I mean, an overt purpose is just to say, okay, I understand, but what is your friend's attitude based on those different things? Okay, so think about different texts you've gotten, and yesterday my buddy Vinny texted me, and I had to text him back, and I was like, I'm not sure, I sent him something, he wrote, gee, thanks, okay, and I wasn't sure whether that was thank you or sarcastic. Okay, so I had trouble understanding his tone, so I had to write him back and say, hey, what's going on? Okay, so figuring this out can help us understand this, okay? And oftentimes on tests like the one you're going to be taking soon, you do get purpose questions. Okay, all right, so tone words, okay? How do we figure out tone, okay? So here's these terms again, objective and subjective, okay? We've been talking about that a lot lately, okay? If something is objective, it's impartial, okay? It's neutral, it's formal, it's unbiased, okay? This is the type of writing you should be working towards with your argumentative essays, okay? So the narrative essay was much more subjective. It was about the I, okay? Now, when you're doing argumentative writing, I just recorded that last video. We talked about how you want to establish yourself as somebody who has an open mind and is rational in the discourse, all right? So you don't want to turn off your reader by sounding too angry, okay, or biased in your argumentative writing, because then people suspect, oh, you're just looking at it from a personal point of view instead of an unbiased, neutral point of view, okay? So we'll look at the difference between these two of these and show how it affects tone, and that may help you discern an author's purpose. Okay. Okay, so read this sentence and try to figure out if it's neutral or emotional. Okay, so here's one we can see the emotion of the child, right? Mom, please. All right, I would rather do it myself. Okay, so we can see that she's not neutral. She's very subjective. She's looking at her and her opinions and her thoughts. It's not a neutral position. Okay, Mother, I would like to introduce you to my professor, Dr. Henry. Okay, is this an informal statement or is it a formal statement? Okay, and this sounds much more formal. Okay, the choice of the words mother instead of mom. I would like instead of I'd like. Okay, you're calling him by his professional name instead of just hey Ma, I want you to meet Bill. Okay, that'd be very informal. Okay, and this brings us back really to a discussion on code switching that we've had earlier in the semester, back when we saw each other face to face. And knowing when is appropriate to use kind of more formal language, and when it makes sense to use informal language. And then successful code switchers know how to switch between the formal and the informal, depending upon what circumstance they're in. Okay, you would talk this way in an interview, I would hope. Okay, if you're just talking to your friends and introducing them to another friend, you might not be this formal. Okay, so choosing the tone helps you understand kind of the difference between subjectivity and objectivity, and the type of evidence that you're presenting, okay? Mom, I'm having a terrible time. Could you please come over? Okay, so you ask yourself, this goes back to what we were talking about last week with facts and opinions, all right? Are these details of facts or details of experience? Okay, are there any facts in this statement, or is this person detailing what's happening to his or her life? Looks like a her. She's got no eyes. That's a bit weird. Okay, so here she's detailing an experience. Okay, there are no facts. You can't measure terrible. So this helps establish tone as well. Okay. Whether something is objective or subjective. Okay, again, you're hearing me use that term a lot lately as we get into the argumentative essay. Okay, my mother's name is Gerda Powell, and she was born in 1933. Okay, if something is subjective, it's told from a very personal point of view. It may sound biased. There may be a lot of emotion in it. Okay, if something's objective, you're kind of taking yourself out of the equation. Okay, the subject doesn't become important. The object is what is important. Okay, so it's a little more distanced. It's a little more formal, perhaps. Okay, so consider this question. The subject matter is personal. Obviously, your mother, right? But is the way it's being said subjective, okay, or objective? Are you too close to the subject? Or are you distancing yourself and looking at it from a more neutral point of view? Okay, and I would say here it's very objective, right? Yes, it's about something personal, your mother, but you're stepping back from yourself, your personal feelings, and just relating the facts, okay? You know, if you were like, my mommy's name is Gertie, and she was born in the wonderful year of 1933, then you'd be very subjective. Okay, but you're just kind of relating the facts. You're stepping back and just looking at it from an objective point of view. Okay, so those are some tips to discern an author's tone. Okay, this is important because you want to figure out the purpose that an author may be using for writing something. Okay, so understanding the emotion that he or she's bringing to it can help do that. Right? Again, as you take the test that we'll be preparing for very soon, you may get a lot of questions about what is the purpose, right? So it's not just understanding the passage, but then asking yourself, well, what is the author's topic sentence? Why did the author try to write this? Okay, so there's three different types of purposes. Okay, one is to inform. Okay, excuse me. Many of your textbooks are probably very informative in nature. Okay, a healthy diet includes several daily servings from each of the major food groups. Okay, there's no subjectivity in there. There's no overt bias towards an argument. This is just on the surface trying to convince you of something. Now in 101, you'll go into analyzing that a lot more. Okay, I teach out of a book in 101 called Everything's an Argument. Because when we really break down rhetoric, that's what it is. Rhetoric is the art of persuasion. So every written word really is designed to persuade you to believe something. Okay, but the way this is presented is not overtly argumentative. Okay, they're not overtly trying to convince you of something. Okay, so look for informative writing and recognize it. In 101, a skill that'll be really important is trying to understand how and why somebody is presenting themselves that way and what's the secret argument beneath. Okay, but more on the surface, some things are overtly persuasive. Okay, the argumentative essay that you're writing me should be overtly persuasive. You have a thesis that's arguing something, and that's the purpose. Okay, so on that test, you might see things that are very obviously argumentative. Okay, required physical education classes should be a part of the public schools education. I can read today. Required physical education classes should be a part of public school education from elementary through high school. Okay, there are people who would overtly disagree with this. This is your thesis statement. This is the purpose you're writing your paper. Okay, it's still objective. Okay, you're not saying, I think that physical education classes should be required. And this goes back to the announcing that we've been talking about all semester. I'm moving on because I lost my train of thought. Okay, the third category is to entertain. Okay, if clothes say much about a person, a woman risking life and limb to wear 6-inch high heels to the office must be screaming something about herself. Okay, this is meant to be humorous. All right, they're not necessarily making an argument. They're not informing us of anything. They're not giving us facts. They're trying to make a point and make us laugh. Okay, so I'm going to put you to the test. Okay, there are 3 statements. There are 3 choices. You guys are smart enough test takers to know that there's going to be one of each, right? So I'm going to pause a second. If you need more time, pause the video. Try to figure out which of these is which. Which is to inform, which is to persuade, which is to entertain. Okay, how'd you do? All right. The National Hurricane Center predicts a record number of hurricanes in the upcoming months. Okay, here's a fact. They're trying to inform us of something. Okay. Rely on Dentifresh toothpaste to stop bad breath, just as millions of others have. Okay, obviously this is a commercial. They're trying to convince us to buy this particular toothpaste. Okay, and then this is meant to entertain us. H is strictly a case of mind over matter. If you don't mind, it doesn't matter. Okay, so ask yourself, how'd you do? All right, did you get all 3 right? If not, are there any questions? Feel free to shoot me an email or ask them shoot me an email, probably the best. If I get a number, I'll start a Blackboard discussion on it. Okay. All right, so like I said, the reading test you get may ask you a lot of questions about what is the author's primary purpose. Okay, you can't necessarily just go to a topic sentence and figure this out. It's asking you to think beyond what's on the page and try to figure out, why did the author write what he or she wrote? Okay, so what is the author's main idea? Hopefully there's some sort of topic sentence there that gives us this. Sometimes they will give you paragraphs that don't have a topic sentence specifically to force you to kind of look and think about these things. Okay. Whatever form the test takes, it will not be timed. Okay. You have as much time as you need, so please take your time. Read, reread, think, question. This test is important. It's a good portion of your grade. So don't rush through it. Take your time. Read the passage a couple times if you have to. Figure out what the best answer is. All right, I'll give you a second to read this, and then multiple choice, what the main purpose of the paragraph is. Okay, I'm going to move on to the choices in a minute. If you need more time to read this, I encourage you to pause it. And I will come back after we read the choices so that you have a little bit more time to think. Okay, so the main purpose of the paragraph is to argue against poor memory skills, to amuse the reader with humorous details about long-term memory, to inform the reader about the differences between long-term and short-term memory. Okay, so we can see we have inform, amuse, argue. All right, let me back up and I'll give you another chance to kind of look at that. All right, is this informative, entertaining, or argumentative? Okay, you guys ready? If not, go ahead and pause it. But I'm moving on to the answer. Okay, the purpose was to inform. Okay, it was not arguing. All right, and there was nothing. It was all kind of factual, so it wasn't necessarily humorous or entertaining in any way. The purpose was to inform the reader what was going on between short-term and long-term memory. All right, one last thing we're going to talk about today is irony. Okay. And again, we were talking about tone a few minutes ago. I said that my buddy sent me a text. I wasn't sure how to read that tone. Was he being ironic? Was he being serious? So I think a lot about text conversations when we talk about things like this, because sometimes it's very hard to read the tone. Okay, but irony is when the author's words state one thing but imply the opposite. All right, when we talk about literature, irony is when your expectations are not met. We expect one thing to happen and something else does. Okay, so verbal irony comes when, yeah, the words literally say one thing, but the implication is that it's the exact opposite. Okay, so at the finish line of a marathon, a tired runner says, "Oh yeah, I'm ready to run another 24 miles." Okay, the words themselves, "I'm ready to run another 24 miles." Okay, but we know that the runner is exhausted after running 24 miles. So we know that these words can't be taken literally. Okay, we have to appreciate the irony there. He's saying, "I'm ready to run 24 miles." What he's really saying is, I need to collapse right now. Actually, again, you can't see her, but it looks like a she in that picture, so I apologize. In fact, it looks like a she who's wearing like a suit or something. I don't know why she's running in such weird attire. Okay, situational irony. Again, think of all irony as your expectations are not met. All right, so situational irony occurs when events of a situation differ from what is expected. Okay, a high school dropout eventually becomes a medical doctor. All right, so yeah, in high school, you knew this girl who never studied. She dropped out. She was doing drugs. She almost overdosed 3 times. She was in a gang. You thought, oh, this girl is not going anywhere in life. Okay, 6 years later, you get in a car accident. You get checked into the hospital, and right before the anesthesiologist comes to put you under to perform the surgery, the doctor comes in, and it's her. Okay, and she says, "Oh, I turned my life around. I got a medical degree. I'm going to do surgery on you." Okay, so completely ironic from a situational point of view. You expected this woman's life to be total garbage. Turns out that the exact opposite happened, and she's she's doing great, or at least you hope she's doing great because she's about to operate on you. Okay, so we can use some of these things that we talked about today to prepare for the test that's going to come. And again, I'm warning you, I haven't yet figured out exactly how I'm going to administer that test, because normally we would just go to the testing center, but I will figure out something that closely approximates, I hope, the test that I normally would have given, and you might get a lot of questions on what is the author's purpose. Okay, so understanding tone and being able to kind of decipher that is going to be important. Okay, these are just review slides. Like always, I'm going to put this up on our Blackboard page so you have access to it. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me. If I get a number of questions on anything, I will set up an activity or do something so that everybody gets these ideas a little more clearly. That's all I have to say, I think, for this show. So keep an eye on everything else that's due. I'm going to start saying this at the end of every video. A rough draft of the argumentative essay is due the day we virtually go to the library. I don't know what day this is being posted, but if this is being posted the day I assign the argumentative essay, you must email me your thesis today. Connect is due, coming up soon. You cannot pass this course unless you do 70% or more. It will end the midnight before the test. So please, if you haven't been keeping up with that, do so. Okay, if you have any questions, as always, please feel free to email me. I hope you guys are doing well and staying sane. I will talk to you soon. Bye-bye.